Hello, I hope you all are well. We're going to get back into talking about epics again. I hope you haven't forgotten the 5 characteristics of the epic. Remember, that is a long narrative. It involves a hero, and the hero is often involved in some sort of story that includes the supernatural. The hero is usually on a quest or journey in a large, sort of broad setting, including a setting of the supernatural. The hero relates to the society in which the epic was originally written, and the whole entire epic is composed of a heightened language. So when you think epic, think larger than life, think big, kind of like the word indicates. Epics have 4 conventions. A convention is kind of like an attribute. In other words, they're all going to have these same characteristics that make them the genre that they are. And so the first one is an invocation, and we talked about that already. That's that plea for aid or help that comes at the beginning of the story. So in other words, you can open an epic up, so to speak, you can start an epic out, and you can be looking for what that plea is. You'll see that pretty immediately in the story. Speaking of immediately in the story, convention number 2 is such. Let me get there for you. Okay. Convention number 2 is something that you have no doubt seen in movies that you've watched. And that is when the action begins in this term, this Latin term, in media res. And that literally means in the middle of things. So think back to movies that you have watched and think about where you've been dropped straight into the middle of the whole entire story. That's where the action begins. All right, and then you know what happens next. It's convention number 3 for the epic. And that is somewhere after you sort of have been dropped into the middle of the action and you're just sort of living in the middle of it and wondering how you got there when you view this movie, or maybe as you've read, maybe you've read an epic already, or you've read other pieces of literature that sort of mirror this idea. All of a sudden, as the story develops, there's a flashback. So now you can see, okay, so here's how we got to this action that we just sort of started up in the middle of it. Now we find out what took place to lead us to this point. Okay, so it begins in media res and then flashes back to events that took place before the narrator's current time and setting. So that's the 3rd convention. So the 2nd and the 3rd are very sort of interrelated. The 4th convention for an epic is the epic simile, and that is an elaborately extended comparison. We're used to similes, but this one is elaborate, and it's relating the heroic events to simple everyday events. And so, you know, always a simile is a comparison, but usually both parts of the simile, both parts of the comparison are pretty normal and everyday. But not in an epic. Everything has to be sort of big in an epic, right? And elaborate. And so it's going to be those heroic events that are related to simple everyday events. So let's talk about the hero for a couple of minutes. The epic hero is a larger than life person who embodies the highest ideals of his culture. We already sort of said that at the beginning of this, but I just need to emphasize he's larger than life. She's larger than life, okay? I'm kind of thinking you can make a lot of connections with superheroes and epic stories. I think you could even kind of say that they're part of that genre to a certain degree. You certainly can relate them with the genre. And so you can see that idea of that larger than life character. Okay, again, we sort of already talked about this in the characteristics, and that is that hero is usually undertaking a quest or a journey to achieve something of great value to themselves or to society. So that's the part you need to understand, is that they're on this journey, on this quest, with the goal of achieving something great, of great value. This hero's achievement will allow that being to achieve a type of immortality in the fact that they'll always be remembered by those who live after them. So epic heroes sort of live on after death in the memory of them. You might notice that the epic hero experiences typical human emotions and feelings, yet again, they're larger than life, so they're able to master and control these human traits to a greater degree than the typical person. So that concludes our discussion. This last slide is just talking about how the hero in an epic is an archetype, which just basically means that it's a part of a pattern that occurs across cultures and is repeated through the ages, as it says. In other words, it's an element that continues on. It's sort of ageless. And is present in, whether you're talking about a work in the, the 500s when it was an oral tradition to pass down these stories, or whether you're talking about something that was written in 2018. That's what an archetype is. By the way, an archetype can be a character, it can be a type of plot, it can be an image, or it can be a type of setting. And so the hero obviously is going to transcend culture and even really genres as well, and is an archetype. So that needed to be mentioned as well. This last part is just talking about Beowulf, and you don't know about Beowulf just yet. You will learn that in British literature, and you'll see the archetype in Beowulf. So that doesn't really concern us for today. So I want you to consider the characteristics and the conventions of the epic as you read our upcoming pieces that we discuss and that we explore together. And I want you to be able to sort of tick them off in your mind, or maybe I'll have some sort of an assignment to help you identify these characteristics, these conventions in the coming stories. Thank you so much for your kind attention. I do hope that you're doing really well, and I am praying for you. Thank you so much. Even as I was creating this presentation, I'm getting responses in on Google Classroom from the assignment today, and I just really appreciate that faithfulness in you. That shows a real maturity, and I really do appreciate your taking the time to do that. I know it is connected to grades as well, but just that discipline of going in and just spending a little bit of time in each of your subjects is one that I know God will bless and help you to grow even from home. And you're just really a good example to your other classmates, because some classmates do struggle with getting their work done every day and getting a schedule going and sort of being a self-starter. So please do continue to pray for each other in that regard. Reach out to your friends, encourage them to get involved. And again, thank you for your good example, because when other classmates see, okay, I'm opening this up and look at all the comments, there's so-and-so, there's so-and-so, that will just sort of encourage them that, you know what, I can do this too. I can participate as well. So thank you for that. Continue, because this is our world right now. This is the way that we are going to conclude at least part of the rest of the year. Only God knows how much of it. And we do need to cover a little more ground before we can close the door on this year. So thank you so much. Keep up the good work. I will talk to you later.